13 Reasons Why, American Horror Story, Joker, My Heart and Other Black Holes, Twilight, All the Bright Places, and M. Night Shyamalan all have something in common. They romanticize mental illness one point or another, and that's not a good thing. Before looking into the romanticization of mental illness, we need to understand what romanticize means. According to Google, romanticize is to deal or describe in an idealized or unrealistic fashion, make something seem better or more appealing than it really is. Now that we know what definition we're referring to, how did the romanticization of mental illness happen? Well, you can thank the late postmodern literature movement for that. During the 90s, the popularization of the other in the center of the narrative boomed in fictional literature in hopes to destigmatize marginalized groups. Daniel Puskowski and Professor Peter Antelias both stated that it was emphasizing on multiple realities and distrust of totalizing discourse, fragmentation, irony, pastiche, and collage. This is where the narrative of mental health shifted. Instead of appearing as a character flaw, it now appeared as a character struggle. In the past, characters with mental illnesses were always portrayed as villains, and still are, cough cough, but by making likable and humanizing characters who struggled with their mental health decreased stigmatization. As a result, decreasing stigmatization arose the romanticization of mental health. The reason why it's important to cut down on stigmatization with mental illness is because it categorizes people and becomes an identity formation. So if society thinks depressed people are just useless and lazy, then depressed people are going to identify themselves as useless and lazy. But stigmatization and romanticization correlate much closer than we really think. While stigmatization promotes negative stereotypes on mental illness, romanticization promotes the opposite. So in this case, if depressed people are seen as smart, charismatic, and wise, then people are going to try and emulate that. In the book, It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini, there's a line from Nina she tells to the main character that shows how fiction seems to perceive mental health. You've told me all this stuff about you, and you're really mature. You're not like all these other people with their stupid little problems. You're like really screwed up. In the good way, the way that gives you experience. What romanticization does is make it seem cool to be mentally ill. While romanticization is not stigmatizing mental health, it is giving the impression that people's mental illness is their best character trait. If they go out and seek help, then that means they'll be losing the only thing that made them complex and different from everybody else. But how do you change this? There have been many suggestions on how to avoid this problem, that writers should do their research or even avoid first-person perspectives to have multiple narratives. But most likely, writers are not going to follow these guidelines. The most effective way to stop romanticization is to spread awareness about romanticization. The groups most affected by these works are adolescents. Have schools take time to shine a light on these issues or offer counseling. Obviously, it's good to have representation of people having mental illnesses in fiction, but it's bad to represent these characters' defining trait to be their illness.